Hello everyone, this video is one of 5 recorded for students of Gävle University. I'm going to be meeting you shortly. I worked in homelessness services and my topic with you is going to be homelessness. Today though, I'm talking about a different topic, and here I'm not an expert in my topic, although ironically many of my colleagues are. I teach at Fechter University, and the town of Fechter has a number of prisons. We visit one with students every semester. And some of my colleagues really do come from this particular area. Good. Despite my lack of expertise, it's a topic which I do find interesting. We're going to think about criminology. What can criminology inform us with for social work? How can we learn from criminological concepts? Over these videos, I'll be drawing ideas useful for us as social work students. Great. I'm going to start in a minute though by doing something a little bit different. I'm going to read from a classic text, a famous text from the social sciences. Some of you may recognize this. Can you guess the book which I am reading from? I'm going to read you from chapter 1, page 1, chapter 1. The chapter's called The Body of the Condemned, and it starts with an account of a torture of a prisoner who'd been condemned of regicide, in this case attempted regicide. Regicide is when you kill a king, okay? The chapter starts, on the 2nd of March 1757, Damien the regicide was condemned to make the amende honorable before the main door of the Church of Paris, where he was to be taken and conveyed in a cart, wearing nothing but a shirt, holding a torch of burning wax, weighing 2 pounds. Then, in the said cart, to the Place de Grève, where, on a scaffold that will be erected there, the flesh will be torn from his breasts, arms, thighs, and calves, with red-hot pincers. His right hand, holding the knife with which he committed the said parricide, burnt away with sulphur, and on those places where the flesh shall be torn away, poured molten lead, boiling oil, burning resin, wax, and sulphur, melted together, then his body drawn and quartered by 4 horses, and his limbs and body consumed by fire, reduced to ashes, and his ashes thrown to the winds. I'm going to skip the next bit. What you then have is an account of this torture and execution in enormous detail, using contemporary eyewitnesses. Our author discusses this, gives these accounts for about 3-4 pages, and then we have a slight break, and then we have another case of punishment. 80 years later, Léon Foucault drew up his rules for the house of young prisoners in Paris. What I'm going to read now is a couple of articles from a long list of articles. Article number 17. The prisoner's day will begin at 6 in the morning in winter and at 5 in summer. They will work for 9 hours a day throughout the year. 2 hours a day will be devoted to instruction. Work and the day will end at 9 o'clock in winter and at 8 in summer. Article 18, rising. At the first drum roll, the prisoners must rise and dress in silence as the supervisor opens the cell doors. At the second drum roll, they must be dressed and make their beds. At the third, they must line up and proceed to the chapel for morning prayer. There's a 5-minute interval between each drum roll. Article 19, the prayers are conducted by the chaplain and followed by a moral or religious reading. This exercise must not last more than half an hour. Article 20, work. At 5:45 in the summer, 6:45 in winter, the prisoners go down into the courtyard where they must wash their hands and faces and receive their first ration of bread. Immediately afterwards, they form into work teams and go off to work, which must begin at 6 in summer and 7 in winter. And what follows then is another 8 or 10 of these articles, and the collection is extracted from a long list of more than 30, I understand. Did anybody guess what I was reading from? I was reading from a very, very famous book, this one. We were using the ideas of Michel Foucault. His text is called Discipline and Punish in English. It may be translated differently into your language. I can see that the French title translates as something like Surveillance and Punishment. So from Foucault, the French philosopher, Foucault is of course a key author for criminologists and sociologists. I'm going to come back to his ideas later on in this series of talks. Why are his historical reports so interesting? Why is he taking the time to give us eyewitness accounts of this torture and execution? Why is he giving us the details of the articles regulating his prison life? Scratch your heads and think about that question. The answer is actually on the next page of this text. I'm on page 7 now of his book, and he notes, we have then a public execution and a timetable. They do not punish the same type of crime, nor the same type of delinquent, but they each define a certain penal style. Less than a century separates them. There was a time when, in Europe and in the United States, the entire economy of punishment was redistributed. It saw a new theory of law and crime, a new moral or political justification of the right to punish. Old laws were abolished, old customs died out. It's interesting, our societal response to crime changes from place to place and from historical period to historical period. We have a response to crime, we have a response to devious, but this is in no way static. And this capacity for our response to change is interesting. And that's going to be one of the main themes of these talks. Good. Maybe that was an improper start for this talk. I'm talking about criminology. Where should I really begin? I should really begin with some basic definitions. So let's spend the next part of this presentation thinking about defining basic terminology. And let's start with the word criminology itself. What on earth is criminology? Many of our thoughts in this series of talks use ideas from criminology, also criminological sociology. What is criminology exactly? What is it? What is it? I might want to pause here and even jot down some notes on this. I can give you some definitions from various places. How could we define it? Simplest definition is, of course, from our basic Oxford English Dictionary. Criminology is the scientific study of crime and criminals. Yeah, I'm guessing we could have all thought of that ourselves. My next definition goes from a specialist dictionary, and it has a bit more detail, and it's from my Penguin Dictionary of Sociology, which is a lovely book. This branch of social science is the study of criminal behaviour, that is, infractions of the law, by which we mean breaking the law. Infractions of the law, especially criminal law. So we've got basic definitions now, but what exactly are we looking at when we study criminology? It's quite possible that you do a degree in criminology. You do a bachelor's degree, you spend 3 years thinking about criminological topics. What kind of things are you going to look at? You're not going to learn how to break into a car, are you? Obviously not. But what exactly are you going to be studying? What kind of modules might you do as part of your degree program? So what concrete things do criminologists actually study? Once again, you can scratch your head, you can take some notes down, you can press pause if you want to. Once again, I can give you some ideas from my specialist dictionaries here. And I've got another nice specialist dictionary to show you, the Oxford Dictionary of Sociology. It neatly summarises the objects of study. Have a look at this: crimes prevention and the deterrence, treatment and punishment of offenders. Now, an offender is somebody who's committed a crime. So we're talking here about how to prevent crime, deterrence. A deterrence is if I do something to make you think twice before doing something bad. A sign on the motorway saying speed cameras in operation, that's a deterrent. So crimes prevention, the deterrence, the treatment of offenders, and the punishment of offenders. And those two last points are separated because they're not the same thing. So I'm hoping you're getting more of a feeling now in detail what studying sociology with this specialization of criminology might be about. Let's move on. Our next basic definition question: what is a crime? What is a crime exactly? Again, feel free to pause here if you want to. Once again, I'm using my handy specialist dictionaries here. The Oxford Dictionary of Sociology tells us it's an offence which goes beyond the personal and into the public sphere. Breaking prohibitory rules or laws, to which legitimate punishments or sanctions are attached, and which require the intervention of a public authority, in brackets, the state or a local body. What is a crime? A crime is an offence which is not just at the personal level, it's in the public sphere. It's breaking prohibitory rules to which legitimate punishments or sanctions are attached. And it involves the intervention of a public authority, the state or a local body. So we're thinking of the police, the courts, and so on. Good. So now you've got an idea what criminology is. Now you've got an idea what crime is. Let's continue our set of questions here. And I'm going to ask you a question here, which is maybe a little bit stupid sounding at first. Why are some things illegal? It sounds like a silly question. It isn't. The more you think about it, the more interesting it becomes. In a simplified sense, crime is that which society rules as being illegal. But why are some things ruled illegal? A short answer may be because the legislator, meaning the lawmaker, or some other authority decides that these things are illegal. But you might say, it's a bit circular, isn't it really? It's not really saying anything new. It leads to the next question. Why does the lawmaker, why does the policymaker, why does the legislator rule some things as illegal? Why are some things made illegal in our societies? So again, strange question, sounds a bit silly. The more you think about it, the more meaningful the question becomes. There's some lovely different approaches to answering this question, and I'm going to give you one nice historic approach, which really goes back to the early days of sociology. I'm going to think about conflict perspectives, looking at models of society shaped around conflict in society. And those models mostly go back to the work of this gentleman here. I want to use Karl Marx's ideas. Hey, a very early sociologist and philosopher and economist, revolutionary, an early sociologist. How would his ideas orientate us here? Good. So one answer might rest on Karl Marx's thoughts. What did Karl Marx say about this topic? Can you guys see where this is going? Where's this going? Marx and Law. Actually, once again, I've raided one of my dictionaries. Once again, I've raided my Oxford Dictionary of Sociology for some thoughts here. This time I've looked up the entry on law in this dictionary. Because the legal system is part of the bourgeois state, it is an instrument of class oppression. The ruling ideas of a period are the ideas of the ruling class. You've heard this before, haven't you? In other words, using this Marxist approach, using this conflict model of society, things are made illegal for the benefit of the ruling classes. The ruling classes make the laws, they define what's legal and illegal, and obviously they define some things as being illegal for their benefit. To give a stupid example, if you're stealing their stuff, that's not to their benefit, so they're going to make this illegal. So Marxist approach, you've got a society with conflict in, you've got two classes in conflict. One of these classes is determining the laws for their benefit. So it's for their benefit and for the oppression of the other class, in this case, the proletariat. Interesting idea, isn't it? Some of you are probably nodding, some of you are probably looking a bit skeptical here. I'm not going to say whether this analysis is complete or true or false. This is really one perspective. I'm going to give you other perspectives in my next video. But it's certainly a nice place for us to come to a close here for this particular clip. Marxist perspectives, what are the consequences for social workers? Much social work is clearly about social control, and this is an aspect of our laws that Marx is drawing our attention to. Examples in everyday social work practice: if you're doing child protection, you're doing social control work. If you're working with risky adults, offenders, for example, troubled youth, you're doing social control work. How could we use such Marxist ideas to understand such social work? So social work, when it's social control, how much does that Marxist idea of conflict in society and the powerful, the privileged, using laws to support their interests and to oppress the other class, how can that help us understand our social work? Another interesting question, which I think this approach leads to: are you proud to be a social worker? I mentioned I worked with homeless people. If you asked me to define my work, I would have said, I help homeless people. I help homeless people to get their lives under control. But you could turn that around and say, Magnus, you didn't. what you're doing in this job of homeless people is actually controlling those homeless people. So although I would proudly describe myself as a social worker, you might say, Magnus, you're actually a social control worker. Chew on these questions, think about them. There's no real answers, but I find this perspective interesting, and it's a nice historical early starting point for our consideration of criminology and all of the related topics it brings. Good. I hope you liked this short video. Don't forget to check out these wonderful dictionaries. As you can see, it's a great way to get into a topic. Lovely. Let's come to a close here.